football coach for 13 years. I coached in college for 4 years at Tiffin University. I also participated in the spring practices up there, which they're allowed to have, for about 15 years. And I really thought my career was winding down, which it should be, but as you can see, I'm dumb enough to be standing here before you today. My wife is thrilled beyond compare. So as I sat there thinking, well, what am I going to do next year, because I was probably going to get ripped again at Mohawk, you know, we're into all this ripping process because of money problems. I thought, well, am I going to get lucky enough to hook back up with them, which I've done 2 previous times, or what am I going to do? So, you know, once you're a head coach, once you're the head of something, the captain of a ship, whatever it might be, you never really lose that interest. You really never lose that itch. You really never lose that yearning to be the boss again. And I wanted to try it one more time. So I thought the Upper Sandusky opening came up, and I thought, well, what the heck, I'll just do it. You know, and I told my wife at the beginning, I says, my goal is to get an interview. I want one more interview, and, you know, if that's all the farther it goes, that's all the farther it goes. So I took a chance. I sent my stuff in, waited for several days, 5, 10 days maybe or so, and I get a phone call from Brad, I think is the one that called me, Brad Herman, the athletic director back there. And he said, hey, listen, he says, you know, we're going to interview 7 people. We'd like you to be one of the 7. So I was absolutely thrilled with that. So I told my wife, hey, I accomplished my goal. I got an interview. I want a solid interview. If that's all the further it goes, I'll be a happy man, and I'll retire and play with my grandchildren and do all those things. So I went there and apparently lied too well. And I got to tell you the whole process. The interview was several gentlemen around this table, and I was at the head of it, and I dodged bullets for about 45 minutes and ducked and bobbed and weaved, and you know, and then I had to go in and write an essay, and I thought, geez, I'm back at sophomore English. And I went through all of those questions that you have to answer, and they're asking and asking and asking and asking, and then I have to go write an essay. Now my brain was fried. I was a former English teacher. I sat there with that pen for 5 minutes and never got one word down on paper. So I remember what an old English teacher of mine said, just write anything and thoughts will start to come to your head. So that's basically what I did. Got lucky enough, and I thought that was the end. About 7 days later, the phone rings. Brad again, we would like you to come back here in the final 3. Went back to the final 3 not knowing what to expect, whether I would have the same committee asking me some questions, or whether to have new people come in, or how that was going to go. Because all interviews are different. And the people were there. Mr. Dosick, the superintendent, really kind of ran the show. He was right beside me, and I quaked and quivered in my chair for a while. But I thought, I'm just going to tell them the truth. I'm going to tell them what I really think, what I really believe, and now at my advanced years, what I really want to do. And apparently, I can sell anything to anybody. And if anybody's got, I have a bunch of beads in the back of my car, maybe I can buy some land for $27 and some beads. So we bought Manhattan for that, so maybe I can do that. What I thought I would do today is just share with you a little bit of who I am, where I come from, what my background is. We'll talk a little football if you want to do that. And then I'll open it up for a lot of questions, and hopefully. Before I start, however, I'd like to say this is sort of the mega and omega of my life. I'll walk in, and who's the first guy I see is Mr. Craig Riedel, my very first principal. And I couldn't have asked for a better guy to start out with in education. Craig, I'm really glad to see you're still walking. And of course, then I have the principal and the athletic director and the superintendent from Upper Sandusky Schools here. And I got to tell you, I was treated very fairly and very nicely by those gentlemen. I do appreciate that very much. I'd like to thank Kathy Brown for inviting me to share breakfast with you. And as you can plainly see, I never miss a meal. My background, I was born and raised in the Tiffin area and attended Mohawk schools until my graduation in 1967. I attended Bluffton College my freshman year. I participated in football there. I was lucky enough to be a long snapper, so I lettered my freshman year and thought I was some really big stuff. And obviously I wasn't, because Bluffton invited me not to come back to college. But they were nice about it. They really were. They were nice about it. They said right in June, they sent me a nice thing, and it says, hey, we really don't want you back, but we'd like your thoughts on some recommendations for the college. That was a very unusual time. The next year I transferred to Heidelberg College, which is now university. I don't know if you heard all that. Heidelberg College is now Heidelberg University. Bluffton College is now Bluffton University. It only cost Heidelberg College $850,000 to change their name. Why they did that, I have no idea. They talk about attracting students from Europe. All right. But for $850,000, I think I could find better ways to spend my money. I graduated from college sometime in the 70s. But I can assure you I only went 3 terms: Johnsons, Nixons, and Fords. My wife is a longtime nurse at Mercy Hospital, and I have 2 sons, Aaron and Alex. Aaron just had a birthday the other day. My God, he's 37. Where is the time gone? My younger son, Alex, is 32. And they've provided my wife and myself with 3 grandchildren: Elizabeth 7, Jacob 5, and Jonah Michael 3. I began working outside of education initially. When I graduated from college, there just weren't any jobs for openings for what I taught. So I worked at Tiffin State Hospital for 2.5 years. And I will tell you, it was probably one of the hardest jobs I've ever had, and at the same time, one of the greatest learning experiences I ever had. I dealt with all kinds of people with some mental problems. Some of them were drug and alcohol-related problems. Some of them, they had some wires crossed somewhere. But I got to tell you, I learned a lot about life. I learned a lot about myself. I did things that I never thought I could do. I worked in the hospital part. I had to take care of people with bed sores, and I had to clean up bedpans. I had to take people who passed away. I had to prepare them for the morgue myself. I had to take them down to the morgue by myself, put them in the cooler. And I know that's a little graphic for this early in the morning, but that job taught me I can do things. I can do things that I never thought I could do. Years before it would have been icky. No, you treat it as a job. Okay? So that was a very positive thing in my life, even though it was a very difficult thing to learn at the time. My teaching career began at Mohawk in 75, 76. There I taught English, health, physical education, and special education. During those years, my extracurricular duties have been in football and track and wrestling, and 3 years as athletic director. And Craig will attest to this. My first years, there were probably, we had more kids there at the school at that time than any other time. It was the baby boomer kids all going through. We ran classes that were really, really large for our size school. We were graduating somewhere in the 130s to the 140s. I can remember my first 3 English classes were down in the home ec room with all the washers and dryers, and in my first 3 class periods, teaching periods, I saw 105 kids in freshman English. 105 kids in the first 3 periods in the home ec room. And of course, those children were as good as go. No one would set the alarm to ring on the stove or the dryer. So we were constantly fighting that. And then I got stuck in a study hall. I don't know if you've ever been to Mohawk School or not. It was in their cafeteria with that alcove in there. I had every seat full, including the alcove, and I was in there by myself. So I don't know how many seats that place held, but it was wall-to-wall kids. So the first couple of years were kind of tough. The second thing is, our superintendent, Jim Smith, was gracious enough to help me get a